Chapter 1476, Extra, Deng, Shentong 16. Deng Shentong fell into the mouth of the ghost again, and this time he brought Amber with him. Amber gritted her teeth. He is a madman who cannot be measured by common sense. Perhaps for the ghost, fusion is also a way to show love for someone. Deng Shentong smiled and said, "But I don't want to die yet." "But you don't look like you can defeat him," Amber said very honestly. She shrank. "Maybe we are all going to die." "Are you afraid of death?" "Afraid? I was afraid at first, but then I wasn't afraid anymore. But now I am a little scared again. People are always so complicated, especially a woman like me. Isn't it?" "But I won't die, and I won't let you die," Deng Shentong said in an extremely firm tone. "I will definitely become a great man who dominates the world in the future. So I won't die here." As soon as he finished speaking, the snow wolf in the distant area once again transformed into a long-range artillery and fired dozens of missiles. The speed of the high-speed missiles was difficult for the huge body of the ghost to dodge. Moreover, at this moment, all his strength was used to bite Deng Shentong to pieces. The severe pain in his back made him roar from his throat, but he still gritted his teeth. However, Deng Shentong had already caught this momentary loophole. He held Amber in one hand and attacked the mouth of the ghost with the other hand. The holy light was dazzling, the sword was sharp, and the silver sword formed a dense net, ruthlessly cutting the mouth of the ghost. But the ghost, who was good at protecting himself, would not leave such an obvious weakness. His mouth was also full of hard bones. Deng Shentong's sword could only tear the skin, but could not hurt his roots. Roar! This time, the ghost chose to take Deng Shentong and Amber to go deeper underwater. The deepest part of the swamp is hundreds of meters high. As long as you get there, the water pressure will cause human blood vessels to burst. Even with the protection of combat uniforms, the actions of Deng Shentong and Amber will be greatly disturbed. Deng Shentong did not give up at all. His sword was still swinging, slashing at the teeth and bones of the monster. Unfortunately, the power was not enough. Deng Shentong's eyes dimmed. In his mind, the words Deng Yuanbo once said to him emerged. "It's not that you don't have enough power. All the high-tech technologies of Deng's technology are used on you. Even an Epsilon-level alien may not have everything you have had. What you lack now is not resources, but a belief in fighting. Think about it carefully. What do you want? And why are you fighting? Before you figure this out, you will never be able to break through to the critical point. What do I want?" Even at this moment of life and death crisis, Deng Shentong was still confused about this matter. It seems that there is nothing he can't get in his life. A life that is too rich makes him not have the worldly desires of ordinary people. He even feels that even if he dies at the age of 30, it will be 10,000 times more exciting than the lives of most people. After the end of the world, his efforts are more for the glorious glory that thousands of people pursue. But are those things really what he wants? After a brief moment of glory, he often falls into a huge emptiness and loneliness. It turns out that he lost his life goal a long time ago, and many of the things he thought were important were added to him by others. "But I don't want to die now." Deng Shentong's consciousness returned to reality, and his eyes became sharp. No matter what happens in the future, only when you are alive can you think clearly about all those messes. Deng Shentong, now is not the time to be sad. At the moment of life and death, he looked at the weak girl in his arms, and the desire to protect her began to emerge. Even though he knew that it was caused by her ability, the inner impulse can indeed be turned into motivation. He began to attack in one direction frantically. Humph. The muffled groan of the ghost came. "My mouth is a claustrophobic cage. It is the most desperate place of death. You can't escape." As soon as the voice fell, a strong pressure came from all directions and began to squeeze the bodies of Deng Shentong and Amber like a meat grinder. Crunch, crunch. Deng Shentong heard the sound of the combat uniform twisting, and he even felt that his bones were twisting and deforming. Amber in his arms was even paler and looked like she would be crushed into a pool of flesh and blood at any time. Deng Shentong felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. An extremely strong thought emerged in his mind. He absolutely would not allow this girl to die in front of him. At this moment, Amber reached out and hugged his waist tightly, whispering like a whisper before death, "Don't die, live." After that, she did something that Deng Shentong could never imagine. She actually kissed Deng Shentong on the lips. Deng Shentong was stunned. The next moment, he suddenly felt a strange power surging in his blood. It was as if some kind of shackles in his body were opened. Amber's ability is called In the Name of Love, which is a kind of power to be loved. Because she is afraid of being hurt, she hopes that everyone can love her. But love is mutual. The person who is loved can also dedicate his love. When she does this, she can enhance the power of the person she loves. This power was once greedily occupied by Wuliang, so he was able to become the master of the Ice Flower Swamp territory. And now, she has given this ability to Deng Shentong. The innate instinct that he has accumulated for many years but has never been able to fully exert was stimulated at this moment. Wuliang led the two to dive into the depths of the swamp and suddenly felt a vigorous power surging in his mouth. The dazzling white light shone like the sun. Crack. Crack. His kiss with amazing bite force was actually forcibly stretched open.
What?
This. How is it possible? Wuliang felt everything that was happening in astonishment, and then bit with all his strength to bite Deng Shentong to pieces. Boom! The huge force directly hit his long kiss and broke his cage. Deng Shentong turned into a ray of white light and rushed out of the ice flower swamp with Amber.
No.
You are not allowed to leave. She is mine. Wuliang roared angrily, and the entire ice flower swamp was shaking. The lake water mixed with huge ice blocks rushed into the sky. An oversized crocodile hundreds of meters long rushed straight towards Deng Shentong. Deng Shentong looked down coldly at the huge mouthparts below. The next moment, a yellow light flashed in the air, and a giant cruise missile fell like a meteor, targeting Wuliang. You don't think I was kidding you when I said I could summon cruise missiles? Chapter 1477, Extra, Deng Shentong 17. Boom. A giant cruise missile fell and directly covered the area where the ghost was. The impact caused by the violent explosion caused a huge crater in the middle of the ice flower swamp, and the dazzling yellow flames enveloped the body of the ghost. Deng Shentong had already fled to a distance with Amber. Amber looked at him in surprise. "Ah, this works." Deng Shentong looked down at the fair-skinned girl and smiled slightly. "Actually, my family is quite rich. By the way, this missile was made by our family." He rubbed his fingers. "A small family business." Amber widened her eyes and didn't know what to say for a while. But soon, the roar of the ghost came from a distance. A cruise missile was not enough to kill him. He was a guy who wanted to wrap himself in heavy armor. His skin and full-bone defense allowed him to withstand this cruise missile that could destroy several streets. He rushed out of the center of the explosion and ran straight to Deng Shentong and Amber. But his condition was not much better at this time. Even if he was an alien, he was still a carbon-based creature, not an indestructible body. His skin was broken and blood was dripping all over his body. He looked bloody and ferocious when he rushed over. Deng Shentong felt his new power. He strode forward with his sword and took a fencing posture. The power of holy light gathered at the tip of the sword and gradually formed a silver four-pointed star. Gather the power of piercing at one point to create the most powerful single attack. Now, can my power still penetrate your body? Deng Shentong whispered to himself and then stabbed the ghost with a sword. The sword took an unconventional approach and won by speed. He drew his sword so fast that only a silver holy light turned into a beam of light and instantly appeared between him and the ghost. Puff! The silver four-pointed star exploded on the head of the ghost. The unbreakable defense of the giant crocodile was finally penetrated this time. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Amber, you actually dared to exert your power on him. This is an intolerable betrayal. You belong to me. The Wuliang was furious. Although the sword pierced through his head, it avoided the vital part because of its huge size. Boom! The huge body suddenly jumped into the air and fell towards Deng Shintong, with its bloody mouth opened like a huge clamp. The kiss of the crocodile is its most powerful weapon. She is not your thing. Deng Shintong was not afraid of the giant monster. He held the sword to avoid the attack of the falling giant crocodile and then stabbed his soft abdomen with his sword. The abdomen of the Wuliang was pierced, and blood gushed out like a fountain. He quickly swung his tail. The speed of this attack was so fast that Deng Shintong had no time to dodge. But the tail swept across, but inexplicably, Deng Shintong disappeared the moment his tail fell. This feeling is amazing. My senses, speed, and strength have all been greatly improved. It seems that the shackles in my body have been completely opened. Is this her abilities? Deng Shintong glanced at the amber in the distance, and he had already understood something in his heart. Roar! Wuliang opened his huge mouth and spit out a red energy beam in his direction. This time, he missed again. Wuliang finally realized that something was wrong. What's wrong with this, guys? Even if he is faster, it is impossible for him to easily dodge my attacks again and again, and even make me unable to detect his movements. He was a little confused and observed his surroundings carefully. Finally, with his keen perception of superpowers, he found the problem. I don't know when, dozens of white mirrors as big as a person appeared in the space around him. Every time he attacked Deng Shintong would disappear from one place and appear in the position of another mirror. Is this a spatial superpower? Wuliang roared in a deep voice, his voice full of caution. It's not what you think, Deng Shintong said with a smile, holding a long sword. My ability is light. The speed of light is the benchmark of this universe, and the measure of all things. The long sword in his hand slowly turned, and a brighter four-pointed star condensed at the tip of his sword. Although I can't really turn into light, I can teleport within the mirror area. Speaking of this, he suddenly said with some pride, even that guy can't move without time difference. As soon as the voice fell, the sword light in his hand surged and stabbed at the ghost from the sky. The ghost gritted his teeth, and his huge body moved quickly on the ice, avoiding this terrifying attack. But the next moment, from under his soft body, a four-pointed star suddenly exploded, piercing his chest and abdomen. Ka! The body was severely injured, and a large pool of blood spurted out of the mouth of the ghost. What is this? He was stunned. He should have dodged Deng Shintong's attack. But why did he still get hit? He looked down. There was a smooth ice surface, like a bright mirror. Mirror images can perfectly reflect light, including the energy they contain. Within the area of my mirror image, I don't need to aim my sword at you. Just leave a mark, and then control the trajectory, and I can make an attack covering the entire range. I will never stop unless I hit the target, and I can't dodge it. The name of this move, I call it heaven etching. The huge body of the Wuliang was cut off, and it looked extremely terrifying at this time because this move was deadly enough. However, although Deng Shintong's attack stopped, other attacks did not. For example, the chariot snow wolf continued to fire missiles from a distance to attack his body. The severe pain made Wuliang return to his human appearance. His entire waist was almost cut off, and no matter how he covered it with his hands, blood still flowed out. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. He stared at Deng Shintong. Especially when he looked at Amber, the hatred was even more obvious. He stretched out his palm towards Amber, like an eagle's claw, trying to control her firmly in his palm. Amber, you are mine. Why did you betray me? Aren't you happy when you are with me? Shut up. Amber shouted with all her might. She looked at Wuliang with hatred, clenched her fists, and finally vented all the emotions in her heart. From the first day I met you, I can't wait to see you die. Deng Shintong did not comment on the two of them. Sometimes, silence is the best respect for others. He raised the sword in his hand, and mirrors appeared in the air, surrounding Wuliang. The power of sacred light engraved the sky. Judge. The silver four-pointed star suddenly appeared in the sky. This time, Woolyoung's life was completely taken away. Chapter 1478. The shocking changes in Edo Castle. Silver snow wolves were running on the vast snowfield of the end of the world. Deng Shintong's silver hair fluttered in the wind. Amber sat behind him, hugged his waist tightly, and buried her head in his broad back. The ghost was dead, and her nightmare disappeared. What would her life be like in the future? She didn't know. But when people are born into this world, the first thing to consider is how to survive. And the man in front of her, who she met for the first time, gave her a full sense of security. Deng Shintong took Amber back to Blizzard City, and no one asked who the girl he brought back was. It was not until they returned to the Deng family and Amber saw the luxurious manor and countless servants saluted him that she realized that this was actually a noble man in Blizzard City. Deng Shintong asked the maid to arrange accommodation for Amber. She took a bath, changed into new clothes, and was taken to Deng Shintong's room. There were exquisite food in the restaurant, and Deng Shintong invited her to dinner together. Amber couldn't suppress her desire for food, so she ate voraciously. When she was almost done, Deng Shintong began to inquire about her life experience. What he cared about most was Amber's ability.
What did you do to me at that time?
Why did you let me break the shackles of my body and become stronger? Amber pursed her lips and said softly, "Love is about taking, love is about giving. My ability can get love and can also give love." Her face was slightly red, and she lowered her head and said, "When I pour my love into a person, he will be blessed. I call this beauty in the eyes of a lover." Deng Shintong had an epiphany. So, when you were with Woolyoung in the past, you also used this ability to help him. That's why he has such a strong power, right? Amber nodded. Deng Shintong's eyes showed a surprised expression. This ability is so perverted, it's simply a humanoid upgrade machine. No wonder Blizzard City defined her as a Class B escort without knowing her ability. But now it seems that Blizzard City still underestimated her ability. This is really an interesting ability, Deng Shintong said with emotion. Amber continued, "In fact, I have had this ability for a long time." Deng Shintong smiled and said, "Oh? Did you mutate very early?" Amber nodded. Indeed, it was very early. Deng Shintong didn't care. There were too many mutants at the beginning of the end of the world. But the next sentence of Amber made his expression change drastically. Amber said, "Before the end of the world, I already had this special power." She lifted her hair. After taking a shower, she rolled up her hair and made it into a bun, revealing her delicate and small face. Under the light, her face made Deng Shintong feel a little familiar. However, in this world, most beauties have similar faces, especially those internet celebrities and female stars. "I have a stage name called Lin Huanxi," Amber said softly. Deng Shintong remembered who the woman in front of him was. 2.5 years of the end of the world made her completely different from the glamorous top female star at the beginning. Lin Huanxi, once a popular young actress, is one of the hottest stars in the entertainment industry. The awakener before the end of the world? Deng Shintong muttered, seemingly calm, but his heart was already in chaos. Because the currently recognized cause of mutation is the gamma ray storm produced by the supernova explosion, which triggered a global genetic mutation. How to explain the matter of Amber? Is she a superpower like Ho too? Amber quickly gave Deng Shintong the answer. The opportunity for me to get this ability was 4 years ago. I have been to Neon and visited the Daliangda National Museum in Edo. There is something in it that gave me the ability I have now. 1 year ago.
Late.
At night, snowflakes were falling. The colorful neon lights in Edo City were still flashing. As the capital of Neon, this is the only metropolis in the entire Neon archipelago that has maintained normal operation after the end of the world. But the huge high-rise buildings and the neon lights shining in all directions cannot dispel the chill between heaven and earth. In a long-stopped construction site in Edo City, huge steel supports hold up the outline of a giant building, and you can vaguely see the prosperity of the former first metropolis in East Asia. Looking down from the moonless sky, a blazing flame shot up into the sky, and in just an instant it submerged a large area of space. Boom! A huge steel support collapsed, fell heavily to the ground, and sank into the thick snow. In the sky, fierce battles broke out in many places at the same time.
In
this abandoned steel city, many aliens in black suits held weapons, showing unusual postures, and were looking around with their eyes ready. As the most powerful organization in the Neon North, Pelican, they will face the biggest challenge after the end of the world tonight. Suddenly, a dull sound came from the ground. A terrifying body slowly came out from the ground, rose up, and was even with the steel support hundreds of meters high. It was like a demon in the darkness, bringing a suffocating sense of fear. Moo! The terrifying figure roared, and then used his muscular arms to directly overturn the steel support in front of him, and dozens of aliens who were waiting on the battle array were immediately overturned. Ah! They fell in fear, and some aliens had transparent blue wings behind them, stabilizing their bodies in midair. But they were soon smashed into twisted corpses by a punch in the air. Some aliens ejected spider silk from their sleeves, tied up the distant buildings, and tried to escape, but a cold light flashed from the other direction that pierced the sky, instantly splitting his body in two. In the end, only the bloody upper half of his body was dragged by the spider silk and hung on the cold wall. A middle-aged man with a long bun and wearing a red warrior outfit landed steadily on a tall building, slowly sheathing the long sword in his hand and scanning the Pelican aliens below with cold eyes. The era of the Pelican is over. Now, it's our Yuma Court's world. He pointed the scabbard in his hand at the Pelican's suit-wearing aliens. Drop your weapons now, kneel down and surrender, and you can still save your life. A Pelican alien holding a long knife gritted his teeth and shouted angrily to the sky. Countryside cultivators, don't be so arrogant. Our boss will definitely wipe you out with his own hands. Hearing this, the warrior looked up into the distance. On the highest steel support, two terrifying auras were fighting. Are you talking about that guy? A sneer appeared at the corner of the warrior's mouth. He's already dead. Chapter 1479. The Demon Court. In the sky, a strange man wrapped in white flames, like the sun god, was roaring in anger and unwillingness. As the leader of the Pelican organization, the second-generation Amaterasu, he inherited the position of the first-generation Amaterasu, the great god Red Maru, and should have been one of the two giants of Neon. However, half a month ago, he suddenly received news that the southern country Izumo organization was destroyed. It is said that the second generation, Tsukuyomi, died miserably, and after being disassembled, he was hung on the wall of Izumo Bay. It was not until this time that he learned that an organization called Yuma suddenly rose in Neon. The entire Pelican organization attached great importance to this and summoned all the elites of the North Country to jointly deal with the upcoming attack of Yuma. However, what they did not expect was that Yuma actually issued a direct declaration of war to fight them in Edo and seize the rule of the entire Neon. The Pelican organization is of course happy to have a war in their own territory. After all, this is their home court. All the aliens, including the second-generation Amaterasu, also decided to completely eradicate the Yuma Court and secure their position as the #1 force in Neon. However, at this time, the second-generation Amaterasu was bleeding from his mouth, breathing rapidly, and in a state of embarrassment. He staggered back on the steel frame, and the steel frame under his feet was melted by his flames. Opposite him, a boy with silver curly hair and skinny like a devil was staring at him with a devilish smile.
Why?
Why? The second-generation Amaterasu roared unwillingly. With the power of the entire Neon, it is impossible to cultivate a monster of your level. Where does your power come from? The boy fell lightly from a height of dozens of meters onto the steel frame, looking at the second-generation Amaterasu indifferently. Of course, it is the will of God. You bastard. He pointed at the second-generation Amaterasu's head with disdain. You, a puppet who is scared by Columbia and Huashu, are not qualified to be called the strongest in Neon. Being humiliated like this, the second-generation Amaterasu roared angrily. The flames around him rose even more violently, forming a demon god's image behind him.
Boom. Boom. Boom.
He crushed the steel frame under his feet with force and rushed towards the boy with terrifying white flames. The smile on the boy's face became even more intense. He made a sprinting gesture and quickly ran towards the second-generation Amaterasu. In an instant, the two of them collided fiercely. The boy's skinny fist hit the second-generation Amaterasu's abdomen fiercely. Just 3 punches directly made his back bulge high. Not only his internal organs, but also his bones were completely shattered. The white flames burning in the sky of Amaterasu, which is known as the sun that never sets in Edo City, finally went out. The pelicans who were still fighting desperately could not believe what was happening before their eyes, and shouted in fear and anger. The samurai said impatiently, "Those who don't surrender, go to hell." He casually drew his sword, and a moment later, more than a dozen heads of the pelican aliens flew high. Realizing that death was approaching, most of the aliens immediately chose to throw down their weapons and surrender to the new king in front of them. The young man in the sky looked at the lifeless corpse in his hand. His mouth opened like a devil, and he laughed excitedly to the sky. "Ha ha ha! Now, this country belongs to me, the evil boy." He threw the body of the second-generation Amaterasu aside, like throwing garbage. Then he reached out and took out a bottle of spray paint from his wide trouser pocket, whistled, and came to the steel frame standing next to him and sprayed out 8 big characters crookedly. "The blue sky is dead. The yellow sky should stand." Neon was heavily influenced by the culture of Huashu country, especially the Three Kingdoms culture. The evil boy, who looked only 16 years old at most, expressed his occupation of Edo, the capital of Neon, in this way. It was also announcing to everyone that from now on, he was the Lord of Neon. At this time, among the kneeling pelican aliens, a middle-aged strong man clenched his fist and said, "It's not over yet. The Pelicans are an organization cooperating with the Columbia Navy. If you start a war without their permission, the Columbia Navy will not easily agree." The evil boy on the high ground heard this voice and turned his head coldly. "The Columbia Navy, what is that?" The middle-aged strong man looked up at him. "If you want to become the strongest in Japan, you can never do it without Columbia's permission. In the past, Japan followed their will and acted. After the end of the world, it is not an exaggeration to say that they are the suzerain of Japan." The evil boy looked at him coldly. The next moment, he slowly opened his mouth and shot out a red high-energy particle beam from his mouth, directly turning the alien into dust. This horrible scene, and the ruthless and cruel attack, made the kneeling pelican aliens present extremely frightened, and they all knocked their heads to the ground. "Now the rules have changed. I have the final say here," the evil boy said impatiently. As soon as he finished speaking, a sharp cold wind blew in from the western night sky. 2 figures appeared on a tall building not far away at a speed faster than a fighter jet. A tall and majestic figure, wearing a red cape and a blue mask, leaning forward with his hands folded across his chest. Chapter 14, 80 Contact. The smile on Cartier's mouth disappeared in an instant. "Are you going to start a rebellion?" A lowly creature of a dirty race, he pointed at the evil boy. "Don't think that I am treating you as a human being just because I speak to you in human language. As long as I want, I can make your hypocritical race completely disappear from the planet." As soon as Cartier's finished speaking, the atmosphere on the scene suddenly became extremely solemn. The aliens of the Demon Court suppressed their fear and took fighting postures. But there was only a playful laugh on Cartier's face. Behind him, Yasin Canero, the piercer in black combat armor, silently took off the sniper rifle on his back. At this tense moment, Cartier's and Canero felt a strong sense of oppression coming from a distance. The two ignored the other people in the Demon Court and looked there. Under the night, 3 figures covered in black robes stood on an iron tower. They didn't make any movements or words. Their figures were a little illusory, and just by appearing there, they brought great pressure to the 2 Ypsilon-class aliens, Cartier's and Canero. "Hey, so, what's the situation here now?" Cartier's face showed a smile again, and Twilight cautiously stepped back half a step, so that he could lie down and observe the 3 black-robed figures and the evil boy at the same time. Don't you understand? From now on, this place belongs to me. Don't come to trouble me again." The evil boy pointed his thumb at himself and laughed arrogantly. Kanero's voice was a little muffled through the armor. "You are not naive to think that you can compete with us, right? Even if you have a few aliens who seem to be quite powerful, you are still fragile compared to the world's #1 power. So, you still choose to be our enemy?" As one of the most powerful naval fleets in Colombia, the Ocean Fleet has the authority to launch the large-yield god of death of love. As long as they want, they can destroy the entire Edo within a minute. The eyes of the evil boy darkened, and he sneered, "If you want to fight to the death, I don't mind destroying you and the entire Columbia Ocean Fleet." Carnero said slowly, "We are not enemies, so let's stop here." He put away his black sniper rifle. "No matter who controls Neon, it doesn't matter to us. As long as you can exist as a partner of Columbia and help us control the situation in the ocean area." The evil boy stared at him and said word by word, "But from now on, you are not allowed to ask about the affairs of Neon. Here, I have the final say." Cartier smiled unhappily and said, "This kid is so arrogant." His smile was very dangerous. He always had this smile when he killed people in the past. Carnero said, "He does have the capital to be arrogant now. Just bear with it, Captain. There is no need for us to conflict with them here." Carnero gestured to the 3 guys in the distance. "We don't know the details of these guys. If we fight, we will suffer." Cartier took a deep breath and glared at the evil boy fiercely. "Good boy. God bless you." After saying that, a sticky liquid substance emerged under his feet. Cartier and Canero rode it and disappeared into Edo City. On the way back, Canero immediately sent the intelligence here to the naval base. Neon Island's Edo City, mysterious Ypsilon-class aliens were found, suspected to be the existence of an unknown civilization. Hearing Canero's voice, Cartier, who was still angry at this time, exhaled a long breath of turbid air. "Hey, Canero. You didn't see those guys clearly. How can you be sure that they are from an unknown civilization?" Canero explained lightly, "After the end of the world, most of Neon's resources are under our control. From a scientific point of view, it is impossible for such a powerful Ypsilon-class alien to suddenly appear. And according to the mysterious civilization contact incidents that have erupted around the world, this is the most reasonable explanation." The timeline returns to Zhang Yi's return from the Southwest region. After being promoted to the 20,000 point black chariot level, Zhang Yi's body has undergone subtle changes again. The whispers in his ears during his sleep became more frequent, but he had begun to adapt slowly, because he gradually felt that it was not a threat from a distant unknown, but like listening to some natural sound from the soul. No one could explain this phenomenon, not even the knowledgeable Dr. Zhou Qier and the talented girl Yang Xinxin. He did not slack off. During the trip to Nash country, he absorbed the essence of 2 top aliens, Lai and Sembamu, and now he is slowly digesting it and completely transforming it into his own power. Not only him, but every companion around him has changed because of seeing the underground civilization with their own eyes. They realized that an underground civilization that exists in the form of primitive civilization has such a powerful force that is enough to destroy a human country. Then, there may be more forces in this world that can threaten their existence. So, everyone did not indulge in the current achievements, but stepped up their training. Among these people, there was one person who surprised Zhang Yi very much. That was Fatty Su. After returning from Nash country, he looked the same as before, still often laughing and joking, and acting as the pistachio of the manor, without a care. But when Uncle Yu dragged him to combat training, he never slacked off again, and even secretly practiced more. Zhang Yi cares about everyone around him. Very much half of it comes from the friendship of more than 2 years, and half of it comes from his usual caution. He doesn't like any uncertain factors around him, especially people. So Zhang Yi specially found Fatty Su and casually asked him why he did this. Fatty Su just smiled and scratched his head when he heard it. In fact, it's just because of a 3-eyed tribe member who I met once. He is an old man who has studied for a lifetime, and he wants to follow us to see the outside world. But he died, and he died in front of me. Fatty Sue took a deep breath and tried to raise his head. His eyes seemed a little sour. I was thinking if I was stronger at that time, he would not have died. If one day I encounter such a situation again, what can I use to protect the people around me? Fatty Sue turned his head and looked at Zhang Yi. Boss, I don't want to be a burden. I can't rely on you for everything and become a useless waste. So, I want to have the power to protect myself and the people around me. This video ends here. Stay tuned for more videos. If you like the story, please like and comment. Also subscribe if not already. Thanks.